I'll make a new Java project T3, right? So now what we have done, we had done yesterday, we had seen that how you can create a simple program and launch different browsers. Okay, Firefox, Chrome, Edge. For every browser, you have a different driver. Okay, now the question arises that now what if I want to build a single script which works on multiple browsers, right? If I want to build a single script which is capable of uh, working on different browsers, then how do we do that? Right. So if I simply try to make that script, then I'll make a new class known as the dynamic browser. Out here, just right. So suppose we have the browser name equated to Chrome. So we want that whatever code we write should be executed on the uh, Chrome browser. Just a minute, guys. Somebody from the class is calling me. Just hold on. Hello? Yes. Yeah, sorry. Somebody from the class was calling me. Right. I was unable to join the meeting. So we want that the script should execute on this particular browser. Okay. So how do we write that script? Because it's going to be challenging if I like the if I look at the normal way, or if I think normally, then uh, we would actually use simple if else statement, that if the browser name dot equals Chrome. In that case, I had not restarted my PC, so I'll have to put the system dot set property. I can write the code like this, that is, if the browser name is Chrome, I can initialize the Chrome browser, right? And uh, otherwise, have to add the Selenium jar file. So every project will have to add the jar files. Right. So if the browser is Chrome, otherwise you will write like this, that else if the browser is Mozilla, then you would want to initialize the Firefox driver. So you will have to write the code like this. suppose I want to put PVC. So, but this doesn't make sense because for every browser, we are writing a different script that if the browser is Edge, then you initialize your Edge driver, right? So if I have to click on a link on Chrome, I'll have to click on the link on Chrome here. Then if I have to click on a link in Firefox, or if I have to click on a link in Edge. So this doesn't make sense because we, even if I change the browser name, like if I change the browser name to Mozilla, then this particular code will execute, but I'm writing a separate piece of code for every browser. Okay, so we don't want this. We want that a single script should be executing on all the browsers. All right. So, how do you achieve this? So, Don, this can be achieved with the concept of interfaces in Java, and that's what we are going to study. Right. So, interface is something which gives you an idea about the system. Right. Suppose I'll create a new, just a yeah, I'll create a new interface out here. Right. And say I call that interface as the bank interface. So interface is created. Now, interface is something which gives you an idea about the system. For example, if you buy a book, you read the cover face of the book. Just by reading the cover face or few lines about the book, you come to know that what the book is all about. So, the book is like an interface. The cover of the book is like the interface, right? Interface is something which gives you an idea about the system, that what the system is offering, right? It's like a preview. So make you don't make functions in it. Okay, so you just make you just declare the functions in interface. Like in this bank interface, I have declared two functions, a credit and debit. So you will not give the body to these functions. You will just declare these two functions, credit and debit. Okay, right. So the interfaces are implemented. Okay, the interfaces are implemented in Java, right? I'll create a new class known as, say, Citibank. Okay, now Citibank is a bank, right? And what we do is that we write like this, that is, the Citibank implements the bank interface. So you start getting some error over here when you write this. So if a class is implementing an interface, That means basically it has to implement all the functions in that particular interface. If I have 10 functions in this interface, I'll have to implement those 10 functions in the Citibank class. Right, so you move the mouse over this and select add unimplemented methods, and you'll have these two functions. Okay, at the rate override is known as an annotation. You can remove it as well. Basically, it tells you that this function is coming up from the interface. It's like a marker. Okay, and if you are implementing an interface, then you'll have to implement all the functions of the interface. If I remove one function, I'll start getting the error. Okay, so please implement all the functions of the interface, and in this function, I will write Citibank transfer Citibank debit. Okay, right. So I'll create a new class again and say HSBC Bank. Okay, this also implements the bank interface. So you'll move the mouse over this add unimplemented methods. So these two functions will come up over here, credit and debit. And you can type HSBC trans credit. And HSBC debit. Okay, so we have two classes over here, Citibank, HSBC Bank, both are implementing the interface. Right. So what we did was basically we created a bank interface. Okay, and these two classes implemented implemented the bank interface. City one. The interface had two functions, credit and debit. Both the functions got implemented by both the classes. HSBC implemented the credit maybe in its own way, and Citibank implemented the credit function in its own way. But what is the advantage of doing all this? Why did we do this? I could have never made the interface. I could have opted, right? And I could have never made this interface, and I could have simply made these two classes. What is the use of making the interface? Look, the use is it gives some kind of discipline to the system, some kind of, you can say, structure to the system. If new banks come up to tomorrow, then new banks will also implement the same interface. Okay, the new banks will also have the same functions, credit, debit. And if a layman looks in your code and he looks at the bank interface, he will be able to easily judge out that fine. These are the two functions in the interface bank, credit and debit, which are actually important and which are actually used in all the bank classes. Okay, right. So,
So it's a programming structure you're saying, like an interface.
yeah, it's like you can say the Bible. You can just look at it and you can understand that what are the functions. So all the implementing classes will have the same functions. The function names would be the same in the implementing classes. HSBC can implement in its own way and Citibank can implement in its own way. If I create a new class and I'll execute it, I'll call it say test bank and I'll make the main function in it. And if I create the object of HSBC bank, and I can call the functions credit and debit. And similarly, I can call the Citibank, I can call the functions credit, debit. So these two functions names are same, but they are in different classes. So when you run this code, you will see that the HSBC and debit functions are called and Citi credit and debit. Pretty simple. Okay, right. Now, if you look at the Selenium architecture, if you go to the Selenium website and if you look at the documentation of Selenium, then these are all the classes. Look, I also don't remember all the classes, nobody does. But the class names which are written in italics, they are interfaces. Okay, for example, hold on. Um, just a minute. So all these class names which are written in italics, okay, all these are interfaces, right? Like for example, everybody has heard the word WebDriver. WebDriver out here is written in italics. Click on it, it's written interface WebDriver. So internally in Selenium, WebDriver is an interface. It's got uh, basic methods which can help you to build scripts in Selenium. For example, if you scroll down, it's got a function known as close. This will help you to close the browser. Okay, then you have the function in it find element, which will help you to locate some element like a link or a button on the browser, right? Okay. And a function like get title, which will get you the title of the web page, or a function like quit, which will stop the script. So this has got functions which will be basically used on almost all the scripts, right? So this is the basic, this is the starting point of Selenium, the interface WebDriver. And all the driver classes are the implementing classes. Like we had the HSBC class and Citibank class implementing the bank interface. Over here, you have the Chrome driver, Edge driver, Firefox driver. All these driver classes, they are implementing the same interface. That means they will have the same set of functions. This is for sure. Okay, so if I go to dynamic browsers, then sorry, we had written this small script. So whatever functions are there in Chrome driver, the same functions would be there in Firefox driver and Edge driver. Because all these three are implementing the WebDriver interface. That is why you have, say, the get function. The get function is there for all the three drivers and the function name is same. Similarly, if I have to print the title in Chrome, I'll write Chrome driver dot get title. And similarly, if I have to print title in Firefox, I'll have to write Firefox driver dot get title and Edge driver dot get title. So we are sure that all the driver classes, they have the same set of functions. But this still doesn't solve our problem because even if the function names are same, I'm writing a separate script for every browser. Okay, which is something which I never wanted to do. I want a single script. I don't want to write separate script for every browser. Okay, so what we do is that um, we use interfaces over here, and there is another advantage of interface. The first advantage is same function names, all the implementing classes. The next is that it gives you dynamic handles. Okay, so what do you mean by dynamic handles? So understand this carefully. I've created the object of two classes over here. Now, if I create the object of the interface bank, I'll get an error that you cannot create the object of the interface bank because interface is something which is incomplete. It's not having the method body, so you will not achieve anything by creating the object of the interface. So in Java, you cannot create the object, but yes, the error is not on the left hand side. You can create the reference of the interface, but you cannot create the object of the interface. But I'm going to create the object a little differently now. I'll write bank B equals to new HSBC bank. So this line is different than this line. Over here, You have the reference of the class HSBC and the object of the class HSBC. Over here, you have the reference of the bank interface pointing towards the object of HSBC Bank. What is the difference between these two lines? Okay, suppose in HSBC Bank, I have one more function, investment. Okay, so when you create the object of HSBC Bank, you can call the investment function obviously over here. But when you create the object like this, you can call the function credit, debit, but you cannot call the function investment. It will give you an error. It will not give you that option rather. So if you are creating the object of the class by giving the reference of the interface, then you cannot call, spelling mistake. You cannot call the functions which are directly in the class. You can only call the functions which are coming up from the interface into the class. You cannot call the functions which are proprietary to the class. Okay, this way only those functions which are coming from the interface into the class can be called. But what is the advantage then creating an object like this and creating the object like this? What is the advantage? Why should I be creating the object with the reference of the interface? Right. Okay, I'll tell you. Hold on. You can also write like this. Say bank B1 equals to new Citibank. So in B1, whatever are the functions uh, in the bank interface, okay, and implemented in Citibank, they can be called with the help of B1. But the catch is that I can make B1 point towards the object of HSBC Bank in the next line. So this is the advantage. Okay, it is something like if I write int I equals to 100, but on the next line I can write I equals to 10, right? Okay, I can equate I to a different value, right? So similarly, if I am writing bank B1 equals to new city bank, then on the next line I can make B1 point towards HSBC bank because B1 is the generic reference of the bank interface. The only catch is that if I write over here B1 dot credit, out here the function of Citibank would be called, and if I write the same line B1 dot credit, out here the function of HSBC would be called credit. So if you run this, you will see that. You see that last two lines. Okay, right? So this is the advantage. You can dynamically point the reference from one object to another. I can write like this, say bank B2 equals to null. Null means that B2 is not pointing anywhere. Okay, null means B2 is not pointing anywhere, but based on my choice, I can make B2 point towards object of HSBC Bank, or I can make B2 point towards object of Citibank. So it's completely my choice. Okay, right. So what do we do with this concept then? How do we implement or how do we use this concept in Selenium? I told you that WebDriver is the interface and all the driver classes, Chrome driver, Firefox driver, all these driver classes, they are the implementing classes. Okay, so we have been creating the object like this, that is Chrome driver cd equals to new Chrome driver or Firefox driver. If you are not able to understand anything, please you are free to ask me. Okay, right. So we have been creating the objects of individual driver classes like this. But I can also use the WebDriver interface. I can write WebDriver d1 equals to new Chrome driver. The advantage would be that d1, same d1 can be pointed towards Firefox driver, or same d1 can be pointed towards Edge driver. Okay, so this is the advantage. You get a reference which can be dynamically allocated to any browser or any driver. I can write like this, that is WebDriver equals to null, say. That is, the driver is not pointing towards anything. And then, based on my choice, I can make the driver point towards Chrome driver, Firefox driver, or Edge driver. Anywhere, I can make this driver point towards any driver class. Okay, right. So this is something which is actually very helpful to solve the problem of dynamic browsers. We will hold on. This system.set property line, right? I'll put it in the very beginning. All the three lines. I'll set the Gecko driver as driver properties. And we will not write separate piece of code for every browser. Okay, we can declare driver equals to null. And then based on our choice, if it is Chrome, I can point driver to new Chrome driver. If it is Mozilla, then I can initialize driver to new Firefox driver. If it is Edge, I can initialize my driver to new Edge driver. So this is the advantage. You have this driver which is not initialized, but based on the browser name, you can initialize it to any value. See, if I run this code now, it will launch Chrome. And if I change my browser to just one, I'll just have to change this to Edge. So it's going to launch Edge. Okay. And once you have the browser launched, you can call the functions. You can write the script driver dot. The get function is there in every particular driver class. You can write HTTP bbc say .com, and then you can print uh, the driver commands. You can fire driver dot get title. So you don't have to write the code with every particular if else block the way we were stuck earlier. I know this might sound a little confusing to you guys, but once you solve the exercises and quizzes and watch the video, you will be able to understand what I'm trying to tell you in a better way, in a more clear way.
Ashish, sorry to interrupt. I have a query here. What if the implementing class has its own method and it also wants to implement the main, interface? Then can't it use its own
The
method?
Chrome driver, Firefox, and Edge, they don't have those inbuilt
Yeah,
interface.
you
They
showed that.
don't have those.
Yeah,
Everything is,
HSBC Bank and Citibank were there, right? There were two methods, debit and credit, in the interface which they are implementing. So, what if HSBC Bank wants one more extra method which is not there in the interface?
yeah, you can have that method, but this way you cannot call that method. Okay.
Okay,
But in Selenium, Chrome, Firefox, and Edge, everything is being derived from the WebDriver interface.
okay, yeah, got it. Thank you.
So, yeah,
Same reference we can use for different objects. Here you are using the ob- uh, same reference driver for three different objects, right? Can we
yes.
use like that?
Yeah, you see that this in the test bank, you had the same instance of bank interface B2. B2 could point towards HSBC or Citibank because both the classes they implement the bank interface.
Okay, it doesn't mean that the last one is the updated one. It means this and this
No,
both
it means
will
the last
become.
one is the updated one. Okay, if I call, say if I call B2 dot credit over here, and if I call B2 dot credit over here as well, right? I'll just put a demarcating line. And when I run this, you will see that the first B2 dot credit is calling the first B2 dot credit is calling HSBC credit because at that time B2 was pointing towards HSBC. Now after the credit line, B2 equals to new Citibank. Over here it pointed to Citibank, and then the same function called the credit of the Citibank function. Okay, right. So when you are writing like this, when you're pointing driver to Chrome driver, if I write driver dot any command, say close, so this will be fired on Chrome browser. But if I write driver dot close over here, this will be fired on the Firefox browser because driver got updated to Firefox. Okay, that's why in this dynamic browsers, we are initializing the driver first. We are initializing driver to null and then deciding whether the driver points towards Chrome browser or Firefox or Edge. And once the driver has been initialized, the functions are same in all the driver classes, the function names. So you can simply call those functions. Are you getting my point?
Yeah, it's just fine.
Right. So it is a little tricky, but once you do it yourself, you'll understand this. And this piece of code we will be using till the end of the training, okay, in the framework, in the regular daily work, okay, how to launch the browser dynamically. This we'll be using every day. Okay, now a few things about Eclipse, guys. right? Because today is the third day, and guys might be working with Eclipse and practicing. At times, you copy the code and these imports are not there, get errors. So you'll have to move the mouse over these errors and import the classes. But if there are many imports, you can hit Control Shift O, O as an orange of the keyboard, and import the classes, everything. All right. And one more thing, you will see these two arrows linked with editor. Always have these clicked. This way what happens is that whichever class you select on out here, that gets highlighted in the editor on the left side. You see the highlighter is changing on the editor on the left side. So you should always link with editor. Right. Sometimes you have a big workspace and you just remember the name of the class. Say HSBC Bank. Okay, suppose you have got no classes opened, everything is closed. And you remember that somewhere in these projects I had the class HSBC Bank, but I'm not remembering where that class is. So you can hit Control Shift T of the keyboard and type the class name. So if I just type HSBC, the class will be filtered out and you can select it from here and it will open. Okay. And because link with editor was selected, so it will be highlighted on the left side as well. If I don't have this selected, okay, and if I open Control Shift T as in telephone, if I write HSBC Bank and open it, it will open, but it won't highlight on the left side. So please make sure you have these two arrows always clicked in the editor. It will help you when the project size goes big. Okay, when there are many projects in the workspace or in a single project, there are many files, it certainly helps you over there. Okay, so Control Shift O will import everything, Control Shift T will help you search, and this third thing is link with editor. There are other features as well. I'll tell you with time. Right. So this was about interfaces. Now, once you have launched the browser, you would want to go to the website and you would want to interact with the elements on the website. You would want to say click on a link over here, or you want to type something in the text field. So how do you do that? Okay, we'll see that next. Okay, rather in the next class, we can see that it will be on the Monday morning Indian time, which is Sunday evening in US actually. Okay, and I will give you the exercise on interfaces. Hold on.